Hello guys, welcome back, and we're here with another review. Let me grab my notes for this title because it's quite lengthy. It's a review of the Gigabyte Geforce RTX 4080 Super WindForce version 2 16G. Read that a bit weird then, but whatever, let's crack on. So I've decided to do a review on this because after I made the choice to purchase it, there weren't a lot of reviews about that I could find online, not on this specific model that I've got. There are a couple of Reddit posts, but they seemed overly critical, and also there's one or two YouTube videos, but again, not on this exact model. So what I wanted to do was do a review that I kind of would have wanted to see for me, and it's going to be from my personal point of view, from my background. And my background is I've been a gamer forever, but I've switched from consoles 3 years ago. I had the Xbox Series X, and I decided to upgrade and move over to PC 3 years ago. So that's my perspective when coming into this. So for me, first and foremost, I had to make sure that my choices were narrowed down by what my system was compatible with, what my PC, my motherboard, my PSU, all the components were compatible with. For my example, I didn't want to change anything at all about my current PC build. I've already, as I said, I've already upgraded the RAM, and I didn't want to change the case. I didn't want to change a PSU, the power supply unit. I didn't want to change any of that. What I wanted was to just buy the best graphics card that my current setup could run and just install it. So that was my point of view, but it's not what I wanted. The one I wanted, if I had all the space in the case in the world, is the ASUS TUF Gaming card. That's what I would have gone for. But looking at measurements, that card measured 340 millimeters long, I think. And when I measured my existing case, 330 was just about a tight fit. And that's what this Gigabyte card comes in as. There is not another 4080 Super card that is smaller than this card. And that is what determined why this is a card that I ended up getting. Now, let's talk about the installation. Once I did it, it's not difficult. It took me over an hour, but that's because I was trying to figure out ways to get the card in. So I basically took the case apart trying to figure out how am I going to get this card to fit. And it turned out that none of that was necessary, because what I did, if I had known at the start, I could have done, and I could have got the card in 5 minutes. So what I ended up doing, there was a clip sticking out of the case. I've bent that all the way back, and the RAM had to come out to make more room, because what I had to do was shift the GPU in at an angle with the bottom end pointing up to where the RAM is, push it down and then straighten it, but it wouldn't slot into place, so I had to push against the front of the case of the LEDs with my thumb, push as hard as I could to just move the case a millimeter or two. And there's a lip to the case that there's enough room inside the case for the card to just about fit, but there is a lip on the edge of the case that you have to get past that. Once you get past that, the card will fit. So that's why I pushed it, got the lip out the way by a few millimeters. Once the card was in past that, it was fairly straightforward. It was just keeping it under the lip, lining it up, plugging it in. And then I had already attached the PCIe connectors to the adapter. So and I kept those out the way, of course. And once the card was in to the slot into the motherboard, I then plugged that already connected up PCIe connectors into the power. You've got to make sure it's straight, otherwise I think that's what was causing issues with these cards catching fire when they first came out. You've got to make sure it's straight, you've got to make sure it's flush. Now, it's not ideal because this card comes with a bracket from the manufacturer. In the bigger cases, what they want you to do is use this bracket to support the rear end of the card to stop it from sagging. There isn't enough space in my case to even think about installing that bracket, but there is a positive. That lip I was talking about at the edge of the case, it's holding it, so that is acting as my bracket, so I don't think I should have any sag, but I'm going to have to keep a close eye on that. Okay, so now we're on to the performance, but before I start, I just want to let you guys know that I've not done an in-depth benchmark test where I've really stress tested the GPU. That's not something I wanted to do, and I'm not sure how much value you can get from that, because these benchmarks, they really stress test the GPU, and it's under normal gaming circumstances, a card's not going to be pushed to those limits. And the more you stress test something, you run the risk of breaking it, and if that's not something I want to do. So the way I've performed these tests is just by loading up the games that I usually play, cranking up the settings to what I want to play on, and seeing how it performs. So that's how these tests have been done. So with that said, let's get started. So first and foremost, I want to speak about the temperatures and fan noise. Fan noise, it is there. For most part, it's completely quiet, but when the temperatures get up to about 70, you will hear the fan. Now, for me, it's not excessively loud. It's perfectly fine. It's way quieter than the fan noise I had on my 3070, but that's going to be subjective. It's going to be whether you find that annoying or not. I don't know. I've not measured it in decibels, but for me, temperatures and fan noise, completely fine. And in actual fact, when it sits at 50, sometimes the fan's not running at all. So I was worried about how tight it was in my case and if it was going to affect airflow and cooling. When it sits at 50, the fan doesn't run at all, and so obviously then it's perfectly silent. And for a lot of the games I tested it on, that was the case. It runs when it needs to, and depending on how high the temperatures get, you will hear it. Now that's out of the way, let's get on to the footage. So first game I played was Cyberpunk 2077. I just went into the game, changed the settings to the Ray Tracing Ultra preset, and ran the benchmark. It ran at 60 Hz, 4K, smooth, perfectly fine. I then went back into the settings, checked what it was on, and I think the screen space reflections, turned that up to Psycho, ran it again, and it ran absolutely fine. So on the Ray Tracing Ultra preset, it sets DLSS to auto. I don't know what that's using, but I've got to say, from looking at my screen, my display, I couldn't see anything that was sticking out, no weird artifacts that I was noticing. It just looked amazing to me. And yeah, there was no issues. The fan, this is one of the games that you could hear the fan in, because the temperatures got up to 70. And you could hear the fan at times during this game, especially when you're in Dogtown. Speaking of which, for those of you with the Phantom Liberty expansion, you know Dogtown is more GPU intensive, so I did go to Dogtown as well, test it out. It still held at 60 FPS, Ray Tracing Ultra preset, just fine. Temperatures are fine, no problems with Cyberpunk 2077. The next game I tested was EAFC 25. Now, EAFC is known for having stutters with some GPUs, and I did have it with my 3070. I couldn't run it with everything maxed out. I did have to turn some stuff down to eliminate those stutters. For the most part, they weren't there. But with this card, completely no stutters, everything's maxed out. 60 FPS, 4K, no fan noise, temperatures hover around 50, no issues at all. Absolutely perfect, couldn't ask for more. The next game I tested was MK1. So again, this is a game that on my 3070, when transitioning from fights to when transitioning from cutscenes to fighting, so where the characters introduce themselves, say their little bit, and then it's supposed to be a smooth transition into the fight, you would get stutters during that transition on the 3070, and I was running that on DLSS performance with some sliders turned down, but I'm not sure what presets I used here. It will be on the screen so you guys will be able to see, but yeah, that's all gone. I can now run the game on much higher settings. I think I'm using DLSS quality. I don't think I use less than DLSS balanced on any of the tests. I think with MK1 I'm on DLSS quality and everything was fine. The game looks fantastic, 4K, 60 Hz, temperature's fine, fan noise fine. Again, no issues here, so another win for MK1. And then the final game I tested is going to be the most graphics intensive. No DLSS can be used for VR because it just looks bad. It doesn't work in VR. Well, sorry, it works, it just looks bad. So this is native power, and what I used was the, what's it called? the ray tracing, not ray tracing, the VR Ultra preset, and then I went back in and turned some stuff up some more, tweaked it a little bit, and I've got to say, this is the main reason that I upgraded my GPU, because to be honest, all the other games I play on the TV were doing just fine. They looked fine enough on the display, but the real reason is Asseto Corsa Evo comes out soon. I felt like I was having to compromise with my VR settings a little too much on the 3070. I really wanted them to be higher. So this game is the reason that I went ahead and purchased the 4080 Super, and I've got to say I am not disappointed at all. It achieves the maximum resolution of the Quest 3, it achieves 72 Hz, and it looks stunning. It's absolutely awesome. I couldn't be happier with my purchase after testing it out in this game. I'm speechless in just how good the performance increase and visuals have been. I mean, I was playing it at 72 Hz anyway on the maximum resolution, but I did have to turn the visuals down, and it would break the immersion for me. It wasn't what I would like, but this is something else. It's really fantastic. It does hit 72 FPS consistently. The performance headroom on the MetaQuest 3 hovers around, at the start of the race, as we know that's the most GPU intensive point of ACC, it hovers at around 20, and then once the race gets going, it then goes up. It hovers at around, I think, high 30s, 40. So no problems at all. It's hitting a smooth 72. It does dip to 69, 68 on occasion randomly, but you don't feel that. It generally hits a smooth 72. And if I didn't have the heads-up display on those dips, I wouldn't have felt it. So, and the performance headroom holds at about 40 once the race gets going. So it says that there's more room there for me to probably turn settings up some more, but I like to have a lot of performance headroom because I don't like frame dips. It really breaks the immersion. So yeah, so absolutely over the moon with ACC. Okay, so to wrap up, I really feel like, despite the fact that this wasn't a card that I would have picked, I tend to, with all the upgrades I've done to this PC and just with anything I buy in general when it comes to tech, I tend to not go for the cheapest. I also don't go for the most expensive. I tend to go in the middle, because what I'm after as a consumer is quality as well as value for money. So I don't tend to pick the most expensive bits, but this is the first time in a while that I bought the cheapest. I was a little apprehensive because, you know, I'm breaking that mantra that I have of not buying the cheapest, and who knows, it may not last long. You know, I can't speak on the durability because I'm doing this review literally after just 2 days of testing. I'm really happy with the upgrade. In terms of the performance I'm getting in the games, it's exactly what I wanted. I would recommend it. I really would. If you can pick this up, I mean, the 50 series is going to come out. Who knows what price this is going to go for? But if you can pick these up at a reasonable price, I would 100% recommend it. It's, in terms of performance in gaming, it's an absolutely phenomenal card. Its temperatures are fine. You've got nothing to worry about. It's not going to overheat. And, you know, as tight as it is in my case, I think as long as there's enough airflow, as long as, you know, you've designed your PC properly, everything's going to be fine. You don't need to worry about anything. The only thing you might want to worry about is durability and longevity. But from my point of view, I don't know, but I don't intend to overstress this, knowing that it's the cheapest version. I'm not going to overclock it if I don't have to. I think in the NVIDIA app, you can do, it will automatically overclock it to a level that doesn't void your warranty. That's probably the safest bet if you want to do that. I would just say, just bear in mind that it is the cheapest version of this GPU that's out there. Don't overly stress it. Obviously, game with it. That's what it's intended to do. Don't go running stupid benchmarks. Don't overclock it to something stupid, because you will be shortening the lifespan of it, and it's just not something that you want to do with the cheapest variation of any tech product, is excessively stress it. So bear that in mind. And if you guys made it to the end of this video, I hope you liked it. Hope you found it informative. Thanks for watching. Please like, please subscribe, And until next time, guys, take care. Bye bye.